All right, shalom, shalom. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Makakwadash. I want to say and give double honors to the apostles and the bishop elders of Great Millstone for teaching us this word in truth and sincerity and for ruling well. And salutations to my fellow Akim across the four corners of the globe, preaching and prophesying in the name of Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shai. And shalom to the elect, the 144,000, along with the mixed multitude of men, women, and children that also believe and fear in the name of Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shai. Hey, I'm my brother Gabar Yahweh from GMS Hawaii, coming to you with another quick lesson, and it's just something that just jumped on my spirit to do. I was scrolling through social media, and I came across this post right here, and this is this woman, she's Samoan, right, and they have a cultural way of doing things, and that's what this kind of videos show. You know, they talk about burying the dead in their house. You know what I mean? You know, the way they greet each other and help each other mourn through the mourning process. You know what I mean? And after watching this, after watching this, yeah, it just made me think like all these other nations have a culture, but our people, you don't want the culture that the Lord gave us. You know, it's a reason why the Lord told us to stay away from these people, and he made us, he set us apart from these nations. You know, because they have their cultural ways of doing things, and their cultural ways corrupt our ways. All right, the nation's ways corrupt our ways. That's why the Lord told us in, I think it might be Exodus, where He said, He told us not to marry, give not your sons uh, to their daughters. Right? Yeah, Deuteronomy 7:3. Well, that's great because this whole precept. When you go down to 6, it tell you that the Lord created us to be a separate people. All right, this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7. All right, and there's warnings. Right, so let's read from the top. This is Deuteronomy 7:1. Right, yeah, Deuteronomy 7:1. It says, "When the Lord Yahweh Bashmi Shai, thy God, shall bring thee into the land, that land was the land of Israel, whither thou goest to possess it, and have cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. And when Yahweh, Bashem Shai, thy God, shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them." Right? So we're not supposed to do that. And it's crazy because these nations now, they don't show no mercy to us. These people that are in our land, these small hats, they don't show no mercy to anybody, you know. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to imitate us, right? And we're going to get that. They're trying to imitate us, and they're doing it in a wicked manner, all right? I just want to read this in the NLT. "And when the Lord your God hands these nations over to you, and you conquer them, you must completely destroy them. Make no treaties with them, and show them no mercy." Right? So we ain't supposed to make no treaties with these people. And not just these nations that the Lord allowed us to overthrow to take the land, but was it just because the Lord just hate people? Well, he don't rate these nations, but it's a reason why the Lord um, told us not to make a covenant or a treaty or agreement with these people, nor show them mercy, man, because ultimately they will corrupt us, and they will corrupt our culture. All right, our culture is a righteous culture, right? It's not a culture of this shit right here. Like, you know, even the manner of the things they do, you know, from burial. You know, we didn't in the ancient world, we didn't bury our dead inside our houses. You know what I'm saying? We had a certain way we did it. Like normally it was the immediate family that buried the dead, and you just kept it moving. You know, you didn't have all of this stuff going on. But these nations, their culture hasn't been taken away from them the way ours have. These nations have assimilated to Edomite culture and Edomite ways of doing things, right? But they still retain a great number of their own personal culture. Let me play a little bit.
Angel to rest. Now in Samoa, because you own your land, you can actually bury your loved ones in your home. So we're not going to.
Yeah, we would never bury anyone in our home because that's it's unclean, right? They will be buried somewhere away from our home, in a sepulcher or something. You don't put them in your house, but this is what these nations do, right?
Coffin to bury.
Particularly the nation of Japhet. And these are some of the people from Samoa. These are the Japhites. These are the Japhites of the Bible, man. That whole tattooing shit, that come from them. Tattooing their bodies all crazy. That's their culture. That's not our culture. Tattooing does not go back to ancient Israelite culture. The Lord prohibited us from doing that. I'm gonna go back to Deuteronomy and just get a law real quick. This is the book of Leviticus, chapter 19, verse 28. I just want to show you something, because all cultures are not the same, right? And our culture, the Israelite culture, is not the same as these heathens' culture. Again, this is something that made us separate, and this is why the nations looked at us as we were weird, but we look at them like they're weird. This is Leviticus 19 and 28. It says, Ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. I am the Lord Yahweh. Right? Hashem Yahweh Shai. Let's read that in the NLT. It says, do not cut your bodies for the dead, and do not mark your skin with tattoos. I am the Lord your God. And when you look at our people, right? Right, with tattoos, right? Our people are covered with them shits. And when we were in the world, we did this wickedness, but now we know better. We know that this don't go back to us. This shit right here, this is no bueno. This dude got a picture of Cesare Borgia on his chest, J.R. Smith, and then he got a picture of his mom on his chest, and she's dead. And the scriptures tell us what? Ye do not cut your bodies for the dead. In order to get a tattoo, you got to cut your body. You got to shed blood. And like Elder Wakaya Kwam said, that really this shit goes back to sigils. People, it's a blood sacrifice. And most of us did this shit out of ignorance. And Jake in the world doing it out of ignorance, but they didn't have no cloak to say they're ignorant, because we're letting them know. Like the scripture says, lift the voice like a trumpet and show my people their transgressions in the house of Jacob their sins, man. We're not supposed to do this. This goes back to these people, these Japhetic people. You see this shit right here? This got a meaning to them. This ain't really got no meaning to Jake. You just doing this shit because it's fashionable. But this is not our culture. And when you look at the so-called Negro, Latino, Native American culture in this world, it's a composite culture. It's not singular. Everything Jake do come from somewhere else. Right? And then when we try to tell you, we try to lead you the right way, you ain't trying to hear it. So again, it says Leviticus 19:28, ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. I am the Lord Yahweh. Right? And why did the Lord tell us that? Because the heathens were doing this. Again, like you look at Samoan tattoos, right? Since we're talking about, since they the ones that inspired this lesson, right? That's their culture. It's the heathens' culture. You know what I'm saying? Getting all this shit on you. You know what I'm saying? All this shit, all on your back and shit. This is what the heathens do. And the Lord separated us. If we all have tattoos on us, we all marking our bodies for the dead. What separates us from them? And these shits got meaning to these heathens. This weird shit right here. I see this a lot here in Japhet, right? So going back to Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 2, it says, and when the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai shall thy power shall deliver them before thee, and thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them, thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them, right? We're not, when those marriages the marriages are covenant. We're not supposed to make marriages with these other nations' women. Now, we could deal with them. They could be concubines, but we can't marry them up. We can't make a covenant with them. They have to come into our way. We're not supposed to go into their way. And that's what typically happens in a marriage. The man takes on his woman's culture. Like Keith Thurman, right? Keith Thurman, he's a boxer. He's a Jake, right? He married an Indian woman, right? He married an Indian woman, but in order to appease her family, he took on her customs. He had a marriage. Now he can't get him. He's not going to have a marriage, a wedding with his customs in it. Her family is not going to look at him and allow him to marry her to marry him his so-called traditional ways, because he don't know his traditional ways. And all of this shit go back to idolatry, the red mark on the head, the clothing, the way they dress. This dude basically had an Indian wedding. You know, and many men do this shit. There was another Jake I saw, he got married to a so-called Arab woman, and he had an Islamic wedding. And what's Keith Thurman's culture? Christmas. That shit go back to idolatry, right? This is shit that he grew up with. Christmas, westernized culture, right? Christmas, Thanksgiving, and nobody respects that shit. But when you get with these, you make a covenant. He made a covenant with this woman, right? And that marriage is blessed by her idols. I'm sure they did some idolatry at the wedding, you know. And this was to appease her family, you know. And the only reason why they let her do it is because he's wealthy, you know. Well, we ain't supposed to do that, all right. And in this world, these heathen, they totally warp the words of the Lord. You know, the so-called Jew, they'll allow you to convert to that shit. And then that's when they'll accept you. So you got to convert your ways real quick. This is Jeremiah, Jeremiah 2:33. Why trimmest thou thy way to seek love? Therefore hast thou also taught the wicked ones thy ways. So Jake will trim their ways to seek love. Let's go to that word, trimmest thou way. The Hebrew word there is yatab, right? And it says to be good or pleasing or joyful or pleasing to these heathens. Accepted, right? This guy, he put on somebody else's culture to be accepted. Why he couldn't just have an Israelite a wedding? One, he don't care that he's an Israelite. Two, they wouldn't have accepted that. Why he had to put on her clothes, you know? Why he had to put on her nationality, you know? And she's taking on other people's nationalities too. She's taking on the Amorite, so-called Japanese, Japanese customs, man. You know, and she's a heathen, so she had to put on another heathen's culture. You see, this is all confusion, man. Yeah, this is all confusion. That term, when in Rome, do as Romans do. Nah, we're not supposed to do that. We have our own culture. Jake don't want to hear that. Why trimmest thou thy way to seek love? The Hebrew word there for love is ahabah or ahab, right? To love, human love, such desire God's love to his people. And right, the Lord has his people. And to his people, he gave a custom, he gave a way that was acceptable. But our people said, nah, they don't want to hear it. It's the book of Baruch 4:1. The book of Baruch, chapter 4, verse 1, right? It says, this is the book of the, Salakia. That's not what I wanted. Salakia. This is the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 5. Right. This is the book of 2nd Esdras 5, verse 27. It says, and among all the multitude of the peoples, thou hast gotten thee one people. And unto this people whom thou lovedest, thou gavest a law that is approved of all. You see? Because the heathen nations laws, they're not approved by the Most High. You know what I'm saying? Our culture, it goes back to these laws. When you read the Bible, like the brother Aria All said at camp last week, hey, this book belongs to us. The Bible belongs to us. This is our culture. This is our history. When we read about the Israelites being saved out of Egypt, when we read about the Lord destroying the enemies of the Israelites, that was us. That was our people. That was us. When we read about the kings of Israel, good or bad, that's our history. When we read about our interactions with the Greeks and how they try to take us over, kill us, destroy us, same thing the ancient Egyptians did to us. When we read about how the Romans destroyed us, that's our history. When we read about Yahweh, Shai, you know what I'm saying, his sacrifice that he made on that cross, that was for our people. That wasn't for the whole world, right? These other nations, they don't know the Lord, right? Going back to Deuteronomy 7:3, it says, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughters thou shalt not give unto thy sons, nor his daughters shalt thou take unto thy sons. Now, was that just because they're, the way they look or the color of their skin? No, the Lord's going to give us the reason why. For they will turn away thy son from following me. And who is the one that will turn away from us following him? The woman. You'll take on a woman's customs. You'll take on a woman's ways. You'll take on a woman's gods, her idols, all so you can be accepted. Also, you can be, so they can look at you like you're one of them. You know what I'm saying? And he looks stupid, though. Jake, he's just one example. There's many Jakes that do this shit. You find a heathen woman and she just throw yourself all into her. And then what? You're going to worship her gods. She'll be in your crib worshiping Shiva and Kali and all these other weirdo shit, putting red dots on your kids' heads, because he has a child with this woman, but that child's an Israelite, And the reason why the Lord told us not to allow our daughters to be with them men, because our daughters will bring heathens into the world, and they're not supposed to do that. Right? Let's keep on reading. It says, for they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. And that's exactly what happens. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly. You see? But thus shall ye deal with them. Ye shall destroy their altars, break down their images, cut down their groves, and burn their graven images with fire, because ultimately those idols, the remnants of them shits, will be what? A corruption amongst our people. Somebody gonna go off into it, a king, a wayward Jake, any Jakes, and it become a stumbling block amongst our people. You know what I'm saying? Taking on these customs. And then what it leaves us in the cold, assed out with nothing. But these nations still got their wicked ass cultures that they worship and that they follow after. Walking around with the dead in a box. You know what I'm saying? Putting the ashes of the dead in a box. My dad did that shit. I was like, what? I looked on his table. I saw a picture of my grandma and I saw this box. I was like, yo, Dad, who put this gift here? Because it looked like a gift. I didn't know what it was. He said, that's your grandma. I was like, what? I almost left the house, man. I almost walked out of the house. It's like, what the hell? What the fuck you got that for, bro? You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times those ashes that you get, they aren't the ashes of your dead relative. They'll be somebody else's. Mixed in there. It's just a bunch of wickedness, evil, corruption, uncleanness, man.
Straight into there with Angel. Now the first CD that came was my dad's family.
I just want to
a huge, massive cowbell. I didn't record that. Get rest with her papa, ending our last day here with our baby girl's ashes. It was really hard for us, but we knew we needed to let her go.
So here it is. They're over there lamenting with the baby ashes laid on top of them, filming and shit. This is heathen culture. This is not Israelite culture. This shit don't go back to our forefathers and foremothers, right? This is the book of Salaki. Matter of fact, let's get some how we do things, how to deal with the dead, according to the Bible, right? It's a whole the book of Ezekiel 44 and 25. Now people are saying, well, this is for the Levite priests. Well, all the Israelite men are kings and priests. We're going to be a nation of priests and kings. All right. So this law applies to us, right? Ezekiel 44:25, and they shall come at no dead person to defile themselves, right? Because when you deal with the dead, you defile yourself. For father or mother, or for son, or for daughter, for brother, or for sister that have had no husband, they may defile themselves. So if your father died, you're allowed to, bury your dad. Or your mother died, you're allowed to bury your mother. If your son or your daughter died, you're allowed to bury your son, or your daughter. If she died, you're allowed to bury her. But for your or for your daughter, or for your brother, if your brother passed away, you can go to his funeral. Or if your sister that have no husband, because if she have a husband, her husband's supposed to bury her. Like Elder Apostle Hart taught us recently, he's saying, like, look, like in the ancient world, we ain't had no big ass funeral service where people with the reverend sitting over there blessing a body. You go to a black funeral, right? You go to a black funeral, they got the black funeral traditions. Yeah, this shit right here. You got the priest standing over the casket, saying some last words and prayers. You got all these people picking up the casket and dragging it up out the church, falling in the grave. You ain't supposed to do that, bro. It's a small assembly, bro. It's a small assembly. So if your uncle passed away, somebody gotta bury him. Your granny, somebody gotta bury them, man. We wouldn't go to them shits in the ancient world. So it says, for your brother or your sister that have no husband, they may defile themselves. And after he is cleansed, they shall reckon unto him 7 days. So you be unclean for 7 days, man. And there was another precept. I can't find it right now, but I know that like for 7 days you mourn for somebody, and you're not even supposed to bring their name back up. But our people don't know their traditions. They don't know their customs. They don't know their ways. And we're through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shai, we're telling you who you are. We bringing it up to you. But Jake don't want to hear it. This is Isaiah 1:3. The ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib. But Israel doth not know. My people doth not consider. Right. They don't know. Jake in such a rebellious mode that they don't recognize that they're the Israelites. They don't see the significance in being an Israelite. They don't see the honor in being an Israelite. Nor do they see the honor in the God of the Israelites, which is Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, and turning back to him and repenting and following his word. Because when you follow his word, this is our culture. It's not just we got some random laws that set up and you just got to follow the law. Like the law is a part of our culture. It's a part of our history. These words, these wise words, this is us, right? This is the book of Deuteronomy chapter 4. Right? This is the book of Deuteronomy chapter 4 and 5. Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments. And that's what's in the Bible. Even as Yahweh, Bashem Shah, my God, commanded me, that ye should do so in the land, whether ye go to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. Why would they see these things? Because they would see us interacting with one another with these laws, these judgments, these statutes amongst us, because we would do these one towards another. Because the other nations, they didn't do this. The other nations don't refrain from the dead. You see it right here. You see it right here. They don't refrain from the dead. They sleep with the dead. They put the dead in their house, like really under the floor that they living in. You know what I'm saying? And they roll around with it. They'll get in the casket, wear those shit, dress it up, feed it. This is what they do. These other nations, they don't refrain from the tattooing. You know what I'm saying? They don't refrain from that. The writing for the dead, making marks for the dead. That's what the heathen did. And so the Lord, he laid out these laws, statutes, commandments for us so that it could, one, differentiate us from these other nations. Two, it would set us apart, right? And that will be our what? Our wisdom. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. And when you look at Jake today, so-called Negro, Latino, Native American women, look at our women. Look at our women. Psh, ain't no understanding in them. Look at our men. Ain't no understanding in them. Jake is through. Finish. They don't look at our people and say, surely this is a wise and understanding people, man. They speak evil of Jake, you know. It says in the NLT, obey them completely, and you will display your wisdom and intelligence amongst the surrounding nations. When they hear all these decrees, they will exclaim, how wise and prudent are the people of this great nation. And that's what we are. Jake don't want to be a great nation no more. You know, you think that, pooling your resources together, your financial resources together, that is going to be the guiding light to you. You know, you had many, many times where Jake did that. You look at Black Wall Street, we use that as an example. You know, you create these bustling communities out of nothing, but then where they end up failing in the end, because that wasn't the resource. That wasn't the real resource. The real resource is Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah. Again, because of what separates us amongst the nations. Let's go back to Deuteronomy chapter 7 real quick, right? I'll go straight to 6. It says, for thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah, thy power, have chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, and above all people that are upon the face of the earth. So us being above these people, not just in status and in wealth, material wealth, but the way that we present ourselves, the way that we act amongst each other, us following these statutes and these judgments and applying them to our daily lives and one another, these nations would see that and they would be like, oh, they're special people, man. Obviously, on top of the fact that the Lord has blessed us beyond measure with natural gifts and natural talents and natural intelligence that's higher than average man. You know? Jake don't want that. You want to be like everybody else. You know what I'm saying? And then when you get correction, you act like our forefathers did. Right? They got rebellious too. Jeremiah 44:10. They are not humble, even unto this day. Neither have they feared, nor walked in my law, nor in my statutes, that I set before you and before your fathers. Therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the power of Israel, behold, I will set my face against you for evil and cut off all Judah. And that happened. And it also culminated in 19. It also culminated in 70 AD when we were finally destroyed out of our land. Now this happened over a period of time. We went into captivity, after captivity, after captivity, and Jake just waxed worse and worse. We always had the remnant there, but as the majority, as a whole of our nation, they said no. And I will take the remnant. I'm asking, I'll skip down. Verse 13. For I will punish them that dwell in the land of Egypt as I have punished Jerusalem, by the sword, by famine, and by the pestilence. Because Jake thought that by escaping into Egypt, that they were going to run away from the judgment that the Lord was levying. He wasn't just levying it on the land, he was levying it on our people. So you can't get away from that. Just want to go to this real quick. Verse 15. Jeremiah, matter of fact, I'll go to 14. So that none of the remnant of Judah, which are gone into the land of Egypt to sojourn there, shall escape or remain, that they should return into the land of Judah, to the which they have a desire to return and dwell there. For none shall return but such as shall escape. Right? And ultimately, the remnant of Israel is going to escape this last judgment. Right? Then all the men which knew that their wives had burned incense unto other gods, because our wives were going off into that shit. You know what I mean? Jake ain't stop him. And all the women that stood by, a great multitude, even all the people that dwelt in the land of Egypt, and Pathros answered Jeremiah, saying, As for the word that thou spakest unto us in the name of Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, we will not hearken unto thee, but we will certainly do whatsoever thing goeth forth out of our own mouth, to burn incense to the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, as we have done, we and our fathers, our kings. And when you were doing this shit that your fathers did and that our kings did, they were going off, man. Jake forget that they were being judged for this. Every time it happened, the Lord brought swift judgment on us, man. But then he'll bring a judge and he'll save us out of it. He'll bring us out of it. And then Jake would just go right back into it, forgetting that how the Lord's wrath fell upon us for this shit, right? And our princes in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem, for then had we plenty of victuals and were well and saw no evil, right? So they thought that because they were doing this idol worshiping after these other heathens, that everything was good. They said that we were well off and had no troubles, right? Because they were doing all that wickedness. But ultimately that trouble came. That calamity came. Okay? So, yeah, man, I just wanted to bring this out. I didn't want to make this long. You know, like I said, this is inspired by looking at these other nations' cultures and realizing that we have our own culture. Maybe, Lord willing, I'll do another lesson and we'll go into some of the cultural aspects of being an Israelite and how it differed from these other nations. Some of the things might have been a little bit similar if they were coming from the East. You know, like the Arabs, you know, they had multiple wives. We've had multiple wives in our nation. You know, obviously, that's not something that's acceptable here today, but that's a part of our culture. You know, not all nations got down like that, but we did. You know, we worship the true living God. These other nations have a pantheon of gods. You know what I'm saying? So that made us separate. Our dietary laws made us separate. You know, our clothing laws made us separate. So yeah, Lord willing, I'll go through that in the future, man. But I hope you're edified with that. We'll say shalom. On to the next.